Cohort 4 provides a really important space, safe space for women in our area with long-term complex disadvantage resulting from abuse. And I saw this funding and I thought, I've never been successful in applying for funding from Comic Relief, but I saw it and I knew that we had a gaping gap in our operations, and that was to have a safe, effective case management system and information security detail. In 8 years, we've managed with keeping secure paper files in filing cabinets, but it's totally inefficient. It didn't feel safe, and it's not accessible. This was unusual, this funding, because you fill out the application, and I have to be honest, I didn't know how much any of this costed, so it was guesswork. The DOT project that we were linked up with, Kat and Nick, and they spent time with us to really pinpoint the brief that we needed and the mechanism of approaching tech organisations. Again, I would not have been able to do that even if I'd have worked and researched on it for a couple of years. I just wouldn't have been able to do that. So all of that as a whole package, together with the additional bits of training we've been able to access, the workshops, the online information security training, as a massive whole package, it's been, I think, the most fundamentally important piece of funding that Cohort 4 has had in 8 years.
This project came about because we identified about 12 months ago that there was no support, there was a lack of support services for the trans, non-binary and genderqueer communities. So we decided that we wanted to pilot a service and we wanted it by Infor.
We found that a lot of the trans community works digitally and online. So we worked with getting an online referral form, which means it's easier for people nationally to access our service. As soon as we launched, we had a referral in that day straight away.
There was a referral come through of a young trans woman who had been placed in a male hostel for the last 6 weeks and had suffered rape from 6 men outside the hostel. Oh. We agreed that we would accommodate that person in one of our safe house accommodation. What I liked about this funding was there was a trust really to allow us to get on with innovating, and a trust that we knew what was needed, and also then putting in the tech support from DOT made us accountable. So we felt like we were being steered in the right direction as well.
The name of our organisation is BAWZO. We are an all Wales charity that runs domestic abuse services, which includes other violence against women areas, including forced marriage, FGM, and supporting victims of human trafficking.
The MOJ funding has really helped us as an organisation to become resilient and future-proof by moving to the cloud version of Office 365 SharePoint.
The funding helped the organisation to be able to provide or produce a website. Immediately we receive referrals or contacts from women in the community. We've then seen an increase in referrals and just self-referrals as well. Our new website offers security functions that anyone who is accessing information on our website or communicating with us through the live chat, they can easily exit without their online footprints being monitored and being traced. And on a daily basis, just to give you an example, today alone in the morning, when I switched on my computer, there were already 3 emails that had come through our helpline, and we were able to quickly send them, refer them to our support staff, and for the women to be able to be supported. There were also 2 emails that came through from other partners who were contacting us for support. So I can say, yes, we are still new. The website was just launched last month on 24th March, but we are already seeing significant changes and improvement for the women and also for the organization.
Well, my name is Yvonne Sanders Hamilton, and I'm the ICT coordinator for London Black Women's Project. So now we serve basically Black, Asian, minority ethnic women. These are women escaping domestic or sexual violence. We had lots of ideas, but because of, I guess, the resources that we had, we were pretty much focused on providing frontline support that the women needed. But now we can think about new ways of providing that same support, and we have a much broader reach. So I think game changing is probably the best thing, because it has changed the game for us, for sure. We have, I think it's 7 refuges spread across London. We were able to install much better Wi-Fi. I guess they call it professional hotel quality Wi-Fi. We've had that recently, which includes cabling and getting guys in to actually put that in place. That's improved everything. So everyone pretty much has access to the technology, and the children as well, because naturally many of them have to do homework, or during the pandemic, of course, they were home. But we're no longer in that maternalistic role of just looking after the women, giving you that space to reimagine your life. And they're future focused. They're not just sitting there thinking about what happened to them.
So we're an LGBTQ specialist domestic abuse project and work with clients of any risk level who have historically experienced domestic abuse or are currently experiencing it.
Switchboard as an organisation, right? The Switchboard has been around since 1975.
Wow.
So we're a trusted community organisation. We've just never been in the domestic abuse sector before. So it's so important that we get it right.
We were in a really vulnerable position of, not having worked with this client group before. You really want to get it right so that there's trust built in the community, and thankfully we did. We take away a lot of the bureaucratic stress and barriers that our communities have previously faced in accessing services. We hear it all the time that kind of they feel like other services that they've accessed were just not made for them or built for them, and that they've had to fit themselves into boxes that don't work. Yeah. So we're able to give that choice, and it feels really empowering.
It's great having the money, but actually it's not just the money, it's having that additional mentorship, support, whatever comes alongside that money, that actually is the true value in many ways. It's that added value that really brings it to life. It means that from the money we get the very best value from it. So there's money and there's value. So the money is great, but the value is exponentially on top of that kind of award of money. So this award and the support that came with it, if you could bottle it and put it in a kind of few words, like you said, it would be that, definitely reinvigorated. I think it's a really kind of exciting time for the organisation. So this project has given a new lease of life, I think, to the organisation.
A really kind of key thing that could be done would just be around how funding is released. One of the sort of the challenges that we had with this programme is that organisations were required to submit a budget as part of their funding application. This budget is often done without actually speaking to any digital or technical partners, and usually done before they really understood their own needs. So having that quite rigid and fixed funding up front was challenging for some organizations. Some organizations perhaps got more money than they would have required if they had have gone through a bit of a discovery process, and almost feeling a sense of pressure about how am I going to spend all of this money that we have received. Other organisations actually, if they had have gone through a discovery process, probably would have realised that they had greater needs than they had applied for, and could have actually asked for more funding. So I think what we at Dot Project would love to see would be perhaps some fixed funding to do a discovery phase with organisations in order to develop quite a robust and credible ongoing budget for the rest of their transformation that the organisation, but also the funder as well, feels more confidence in.
The key things that takes a long time is finding and onboarding and working with partners. And a lot of what we've seen across these organisations have needed digital and technology partners, and some of them very specialist partners. It takes a long time to do your due diligence, to understand the contracts. That's been a massive thing, and do that process, get sign off by the board in order to go ahead. That can take weeks, if not months, and that's only part of the journey.
The people who are working with the communities actually know what the needs of the community are, and our service users actually design our services. So it's easier for us to come and say, this is the service that our community needs. Please, can you find it, instead of putting a framework and forcing everybody to do that. So please, if we are going to commission something, let's work with the sector. Let's work with the key primary stakeholders and secondary stakeholders, and then design the program.
I guess for me, one of the there's a couple of priority areas that relate to time, and the first one is around building trust with these organisations. This program was very short. It was 6 months. We weren't able to have any face-to-face with any organisations due to COVID. But just generally being able to build trust in order to be able to support them in a non-judgmental way. That takes a lot of time. It's like any relationship takes a lot of time, and particularly one where you're trying to deliver a lot in a very short amount of time that has dramatic impact and change on the people within that organisation.
It takes time to build the trust that we spoke about earlier. It takes time to build these services, especially specialist. It does take that extra time to make things right as well, because what we didn't want to do is rush to build something, do it completely wrong, lose that trust. And once you lose the trust, you lose the community. So the time definitely was a really crucial point for us. We wanted to make sure we did things in a timely manner, but also correctly.
The funders understand the critical role that digital technology plays in the sector, and not just for the staff, but in terms of improving the lives of service users. And there should be more support for organizations in being able to provide that.
Digital change takes time, and what we've seen definitely in the last part of the last kind of 2 or 3 months is this acceleration of trying to kind of spend the money, get the tools in, but then without the ability to kind of really take the time around the change management piece and bring the rest of the teams along on that journey to understand the change in their way of working. And you just referred earlier to that website and people being able to kind of self-refer through that website, but there's a whole user journey underneath that. Where does that information go? How do I access it? How do I log that I've been able to support them or book them into a session? So I think for me it's the time. I mean, we typically say it's at least 18 months, if not 3 years, to actually really embed some foundational, fundamental tooling and change.